As some of our viewers across the Tri-County region of northern New York might know, the budget for our little corner show on hometown cable is about this much. So we have a spendable income of about 39 cents on any given day. My point being that we really couldn't take our hometown cable cameras to Nicaragua. So we did the next best thing on this, what is it, the 12th day of March, 1999, a little snow outside. We're inside in the wonderful old historic boardroom at what is now Seton Catholic Central School with Sister Debbie Blow and some of the students who made that wonderful trip recently to Nicaragua. If there is one person viewing this program who doesn't know at least a little bit about this trip now, they have to have been living underneath a stone somewhere. Sister, it's been a while since you got back. Besides your voice still being a little bit tenuous, how do you feel? Are you beginning to work this through your mind?
Yeah, I think it's something that happens slowly and gradually. I kind of describe it like we were on a roller coaster of emotions while we were in Nicaragua. Now it's settling in and it's seeping into our deeper consciousness, at least for me it is. And in terms of what I experienced, what I saw, what I felt, for me it was kind of a mirror into my own soul, but it also was a doorway into my past as well as my future. And
what a wonderful way to put it.
Well, I think we can talk poverty, and we can talk being there for the poor and opting for the poor and bringing hope to people. But until I had this experience, I'm not saying it was just talk, because it never was, but it certainly has taken on a much deeper awareness and a deeper perspective for me in terms of...
It suddenly becomes part of your fabric, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You don't spend a day without thinking about what we did or who we saw, or a face that comes up in the middle of the night, or an experience when it's almost like deja vu. You're doing something here in class or with a student, and it helps you to reflect back quickly to something that happened in Nicaragua.
Just in case somebody doesn't know the whole picture, and hopefully we'll fill in a lot of those blanks before we finish this edition of our little corner, let's go back in time and tell me how this whole concept was conceived and why.
Back in late October, there was a very devastating hurricane, Hurricane Mitch, which poured in some areas 5 feet of rain in Nicaragua and Honduras. That was a piece of the connection as to why we chose to do what we did. But 12 years ago, when I was a principal of St. Peter's School, we had a family that escaped from Nicaragua, and they came to my door and asked if I could accept their children into our school. And at the time, they were very, and still are very proud people, Mr. and Mrs. Flores, and their concern was not having any money, obviously, and I told them at that time, there will come a day when you will be able to give back. Well, that day has come, because they've been a part of this in terms of giving back to their own people. In late October, we had a campus ministry meeting here at Seton, and we started by saying, well, why don't we do a collection? Because we have those 2 students that were in first and kindergarten 12 years ago are now.
Don't you love it?
I love it. Juniors and seniors. And so we said, why don't we do something to help Oscar and Alona? And I called Jamalette. She said that would be fine. And then we asked Oscar and Alona if they were okay with that, because we didn't want to do anything that would make anyone uncomfortable, and they said that would be fine. So we started by doing a dress-down day here at Seton. And we really, no, I'm sorry, we didn't. That was one of the first thoughts. But then we decided, no, let's just do this just for the sake of the cause. So there was nothing. We simply asked students to bring in a minimum of $3. In 3 days' time, the students of Seton Catholic brought in $1,300.
Wow.
So then we said, okay, let's challenge the local community to match our funds. And $18,000 later, we were into phase 1. Needless to say, the North Country responded. So in early December, we sent Jamalette and Eve McGill down as our emissaries to begin to help the people of an area where Oscar and Jamilet had lived, Chiquilistagua, Nicaragua. Upon their return, the three of us, Jamilet, Eve, and myself, were speaking about the trip, and we said, and Eve and Jamilet said, we need to go back. And so then we began to talk about bringing students and making this phase 2. Jamilet and Eve thought we might get 10 or 20 students. And in our interest meeting, when we first announced it, we had 62 students who were interested in going. That was eventually narrowed down to 28 students that could go. We did not refuse anyone because of financial need or anything like that. It was simply whether or not they got their parents' approval or whatever. And so we began phase 2, at which point we continued the collection and received another $15,000. So in the course of phase 1 and phase 2, the North Country, and see, this really has gone beyond Seton now. It's a mission of hope for the entire North Country. We are now, we've now been able to supply over $33,000. In early February, we made a commitment, 53 of us, including 28 students and 3 staff people from Seton, a doctor, 5 nurses, a dental hygienist, one of the teachers from St. Peter's, and other adults from the local community. We journeyed to Nicaragua. And from there, it was a myriad of experiences, from repairing the school that had been somewhat, just one whole section of the school that had really been badly damaged by the hurricane flooding, to working with the poor, to helping in an orphanage, and establishing a clinic for a week. So those were just a few of the things that we did.
And we're going to touch on a lot more of those, and I know your voice is going to hold out because I said a fervent prayer for you on the way over here today, and for myself too, because this is really a powerful thing that you've done, and the impact of that power has not even begun to be felt. Introduce the students who are here.
To my immediate left is Holly Brady, one of our students who came to Nicaragua with us.
Hi, Holly. Hello. Ooh, listen to that little teeny voice. We're going to help you to speak up. We have ways. Next.
And then in the middle is Elisa Honig. She's an international student from Germany and lives with Evelyn McGill, and also came with us to Nicaragua.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Elisa, I'm stepping on my cord. Okay, next.
And next to Elisa is one of our seniors, Damian Siskavage, who's a local boy and also came on the trip.
Hi, Damian.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
They represent 3 of the 28 students that journeyed to Chiquilistagua.
Yes, we've got a tiny sample here, and maybe at some future time we can talk to all the students and the folks who went. You had quite a contingent, members of other members of the community.
Absolutely.
You had news media. Jack LeDuc from WCAX Channel 3 Television accompanied you, and Saul Ferrer from the Press Republican with his digital camera sending those wonderful photographs back.
And maybe next year, if we work on this, we can get Calvin and Gordon.
Well, I told you, 37-cent budget. I don't know. We might make it down to wave at you when when the plane takes off.
We really did not ask media to come because that was not our focus. We were really trying to make this entire mission a mission of the heart. But when Jack and Saul heard of what we were doing, their businesses requested that they accompany us, and that really was a blessing, because what that did was enable more people in the North Country to become aware of the extent, not only of the devastation, but also of the beauty and the spirit of the people of Nicaragua. So they gave day-by-day accounts, and that was quite exciting.
To see it back home, because we had to share it with you in that way. And I have to say that my good friend Jack LeDuc, who's been almost a lifelong, at least through my adult life, friend of mine, has promised to give us a great deal of the footage that he shot as an addendum to this edition of our little corner. So we'll be seeing that at the end without commentary, just watching some of the great scenes from Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And so this could be what I like to think of as a classic program before we're through, just because of you people and because of the subject matter. We're going to all sit down at this table, and we're going to pass the microphone back and forth and get some impressions about your trip and cover just as much ground as we possibly can in the next hour or so for our viewers and for us, the great spirit of the North Country spreading out over the face of the earth on this edition of Our Little Corner. All right, let us begin this endless flow of words to describe what we have in our souls. We're sitting at the table with some of the constituents and the folks who went to Nicaragua, and we're going to explain a few of the pictures and attach those to the circumstances around them. I see a familiar face in that first photograph.
That first photograph is of Jerry Hamill, one of the local construction individuals that came with us, and he's an excellent painter and repairman. Jerry asked to accompany us on this trip, and Jerry actually became the coordinator of the repair program at the school.
I should have guessed.
But Jerry also had time, particularly this picture that we're looking at was the second day we were there. It became a very emotional experience for those of us who wandered over to the a kitchen area that the sisters on the compound provide. If they have food given to them, they will provide meals for the needy. And in certain circumstances, some of these people haven't eaten in days. To help distribute the food and to give away a few things such as shoes. And what you see in this picture is Jerry putting a pair of moccasins, the little boy's first pair ever, on his feet. And
wow.
Yeah.
There are some analogies there that just about enough to blow your mind.
Well, if you know, I think of that saying, walk a mile in my shoes.
Yeah.
And we all walked a mile in that young boy's shoes that day. We walked a mile in our hearts, you know, and it was very difficult. I remember many times that morning being very emotional, and Jerry, one of the nice things that Jerry said to me that day was, let's remember, sister, we can't heal the world all in one day. And
one pair of feet at a time.
One pair of feet at a time. Yeah. So this experience was taking place at the what we affectionately term the soup kitchen. It really often boiled down to a cup of rice or maybe a little bit of chicken or a soup-like experience for the families that would walk miles to come.
You know, it's very easy for us in our comfortable little corners to insulate ourselves from other people's problems because, you know, we think we have problems of our own. And some of us, as we've said so many times on this show, insulate ourselves from our neighbors' problems to the point where we're not ready to reach out and help. This is true on another level with these people in Nicaragua. And as you said so eloquently at the beginning of our program, being there with them made it your problem then and there.
Being there with them did something invaluable for us. It moved us from talking about the people of Nicaragua as an us and them kind of experience to really being able to put faces and hands and hearts and crying eyes to the experience and names. And when that begins to happen, then it's no longer an us and them, but it's a we. And I think that was my hope for the students when they went to Nicaragua. It certainly happened for me, and I think you'll see that as you talk to them as well.
What picture do we have here now?
The picture you have here is probably one of my most memorable moments, personally. This was the second day at the soup kitchen, and I had gone over. This father had 5 children with him, and in that picture you can see that I'm feeding a little boy called Elia. And the father explained to me through my interpreter that this was the first time in 3 days that the children had eaten. They had walked many miles to come, but for the 2 days previous to that, they had run out of food before they were able to serve them, so they had quietly walked back home. This day, they were able to eat, and I had the blessing of being able to help Elia eat. And at first, Elia was a little frightened of me, of course, didn't know who I was. And then we began to give T-shirts and soap and shampoo, and you thought, oh, they were so excited.
In some sense, you were.
Maybe. Things that seemed so trivial to us became so significant for them. But the reason this picture will be forever in my mind and in my heart is a week later when we were ready to leave, this father shows up with these 5 children. And he had walked 14 kilometers to come back to say goodbye to what he affectionately termed as Americanos Amigos. And he put Elia in my arms. And Elia said to me, Me te amo, which means I love you. And that was the transition that had happened in that week. And by this time, the dad is crying and I'm crying. And the little boy is smiling. And I said, it meant so much to me that they had come to say goodbye. And he was saying through my interpreter how grateful we are to all of our American friends for coming and sharing and being with us this week. And the person who was interpreting for me said, well, you might want to say a special prayer for Sister today because she is terribly afraid of flying, and which is very true. And
Special
terribly afraid. And this kind of shows the depth of the spirit and the faith of the people. He said, tell Sister that I will ask God to put the Virgin Mary on your plane today. And so I thanked him. And then I said to him, I don't know if or when we'll ever meet again, but you will always be in my heart. And he taught me a valuable lesson. He said, we will meet every day when we pray, even if we never see each other again. So that's a very special picture for me because it tells a story. It tells a story of a relationship that time or distance won't break.
Yeah, time and distance have no meaning in the reality of things, do they?
No, it sure doesn't.
All right, next picture in the sequence.
In the sequence, I probably should let Elisa refer to this one because Elisa is in this picture. It's one of her experiences, one of the same days when we were working in the soup kitchen. And I think the thing that just warmed my heart so much was my students who truly come from reasonably good homes and good living conditions and excellent experiences. Elisa's an international student from Germany. And they could look beyond the dirty faces and the crying, caked eyes, and they could look beyond the hands and the feet that hadn't been cleaned because there was no water, or the scraggly clothes, and they looked into the faces and the eyes of the children. And in this picture, the students are feeding the children.
Let's talk about that. Elisa, tell me what your feelings are.
I think it's hard to describe because, first, I'm not really fluent in the language.
Yes, you are. You're beautiful.
And I don't know, I was supposed to work in the clinic, and I walked by the cafeteria. I don't know if you can call it cafeteria. And I heard voices there, so I walked over there, and I saw this little girl in her dirty pink dress, and I don't know, it was just touching me, and I felt so helpless. So I couldn't do anything, though. I just took her and put her in my lap, and I started feeding her. And she was just, we couldn't talk because I don't speak Spanish, and she was just smiling at me. And I didn't really feel sad because she looked so happy. And I don't know, I was listening, I was looking at myself, and I thought, actually, you should feel really bad about that. But I couldn't really feel sadness because the people there, and this little girl, they didn't look sad. So, and I don't know, that gave really a lot to me, this little girl, and just being there with me. And I don't know, and then she told me that she couldn't eat everything because she had to bring something home for her father. And I don't know, it just changed.
It's a tremendous, almost a conflict of emotions. When you think you said you thought you were supposed to be sad, but this little child was so happy. I bet that smile will stay in your mind for a while.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see her, it's strange. I mean,
It's strange and it's wonderful. And before we finish talking with you and the other two students here today and with Sister Debbie, you'll become aware of the fact that this experience was profound for everyone who involved here and in Nicaragua. And these impressions that you're getting just a glimpse of through these photographs are impressions that are stamped indelibly in the hard drive of these people who went, and there's things they can never forget. Just the way she told us that story gives me a direct impression of what that moment must have been like.
It was it was a wellspring of conflicting emotions. To see the smiles on the children. The first day when we got there, my students kind of stood back, and even a couple of them said to me, well, gosh, they don't look so bad, you know, in terms of they were all dressed, these kids were dressed neatly in uniforms ready for school. And my response to one of them was, let's wait till tomorrow. Let's just wait and see where they live, and we'll begin to understand a little bit about who they are and where they're from. And so we began to do that, and by the second and the third day, these students were not only not standing off looking at the others, but my kids couldn't go anywhere without having kids tugging on their shoulders and carrying them in their arms or on their... Oh, they were just like, you know, it was just such a beautiful experience. And I think the conflicting emotions is truly the paradox that in America, young and old, many of us base our happiness on materialism. And with the people that we were able to experience in Nicaragua, their happiness was much deeper than that. It didn't depend on what they had, because they had nothing, but they had their faith, they had their family, they had their own personal spirits of friendship and gift-giving. We went thinking we were going to do so much for them. We came back so filled with hope and love. And I mean, I can't tell you, this is my 25th anniversary year as a religious.
Come on.
I'm old.
Wow,
you're getting old. We're getting old together, Gordy.
Oh, my. I love it.
And if someone had said to me, this is what you would be doing in your 25th year, I would have said, no way, not me. I'm not going to Nicaragua. I'm not
flying
I'm
on
not
that
flying.
plane.
But I cannot, in my entire lifetime, name a moment when I felt so filled with love and felt my own lovableness at a level that wasn't conditional on anything or anybody. I don't know if that names it. I can see Damien smiling, so I think that touches a chord for him. But
yeah, and for everyone, you've touched the right buttons already this morning in terms of how I react to things like this, because one of my favorite words is communication. I mentioned the word perspective, but communication, and you all communicated on a level that transcends language and just about anything else, because you're going soul to soul to soul.
Exactly. I mean, granted, having the knowledge of the language is a benefit, no doubt about it. But we talked about that even before we left, and we said the language of love transcends barriers.
Okay, you said it. That's absolutely terrific. All right, let us take a break, and we're going to talk to the other students. We're going to look at lots more pictures, and we're going to have a great time as we describe the trip to Nicaragua. We just continue our discussion sitting in the boardroom at Seton Catholic Central School in Plattsburgh, this wonderful historic building. I always feel history around me, but I feel as beyond all of this edifice here, you people have created some history of your own in your trip to Nicaragua. What's the next picture over there? You already expelled about 30,000 words, and Calvin is so afraid that those words are going to be lost in the ethers that we have to recapture them. What was that all about now?
Well, the next picture, I didn't even know that the girls were being called princesses, but the children that you see, the Nicaraguan children that you see in this picture, did not have money to go to school. So during the course of the school day, after we had fed these children for a couple of days in the soup kitchen or helped them in the clinic, seeing the doctor, etc., they came in the next morning, as you can see, bearing the natural gift, the gift of flowers. And they started to put the flowers in our girls' hair, and that's what you see. And it was just, I stood at a distance. I took the picture because I needed to take the picture to tell the story, but I stood at a distance and I literally watched just relationships developing simply just from the sharing of something as simple as a flower. And I cried again and again and again.
Well, I'm sure I will before this program is finished. So far, I've held up pretty well, I think. But the exchange of something as simple as a flower.
Yeah.
I mean, how many poems have been written about flowers? How many songs have been written about flowers? La Vie en Rose, and so many others. Flowers are a rather eloquent thing to exchange, aren't they?
Yeah, it is, and it also is. It shows such a contrast because the beauty of the land and the beauty of the people and the beauty of the nature is so sharply contrasted with the devastation and the poverty of the people. These very children were living in cardboard boxes or living under trees, and yet they had the wherewithal to pick a flower and come and put it in our kids' hair.
That's great. Well, let's talk about flowers. What did that mean to you?
It was a real surprise. Like, we were just sitting there trying to talk to the kids. It's difficult for us because we don't really speak Spanish very well, and the kids started putting flowers in our hair, and it was really nice, and they just...
I hear stage whispers over here. Is she giving you clues over
Trying
here?
to speak up.
Oh, this microphone can pick her up very well.
They, like, down there, like, because it's so hard to communicate because we didn't speak very well, it's, like, always smiling at people, and they were the friendliest people I've ever met. I've never met people that would be, like, so nice to people you don't know. They surprised me.
Well, you're getting down to the basics of what's important in human relationships, and it's not me giving you that 5-carat diamond ring or that new Maserati. It's way more important to develop those deep, loving relationships, and you've discovered that all it takes sometimes is a flower and a smile.
Yeah.
And a little hug.
You don't do that, like, so much in Plattsburgh. You don't walk up to people and put flowers in their hair, and it's...
I might now that you've given me the idea, but...
It was different, and they're really, like, the greatest people. They were so nice to us, and they tried really, really hard, some of the kids, to speak English to me because I had such a hard time understanding them. They were really nice.
Did you come back and say, I want to sign up for Spanish next semester?
I'm in Spanish now, so I tried.
Are you really?
I'm taking it, so I knew a lot. Like, I learned how to say new stuff that I didn't know I learned more when I was there. It helped when I was down there, but I still am not fluent, so.
I bet if you were all immersed down there for about, about 6 weeks and weren't allowed to use one word of English, that you would come back speaking rather fluent Spanish.
Yeah, I think so. I think I learned a lot when I was down there because I used it more often than I do.
Yeah, because you were listening to the language as it's spoken, not in a classroom, but for the exchange of all these wonderful things. So you're telling me that this was a pretty heavy experience for you.
I wasn't sad for the most part when I was down there. I was more sad when I came back because, like, when I was down there, like, you got to see the people every day, and it became you were accustomed to seeing the people, and they'd run up and hug you in the morning and stuff. And then when you come back, you're like, I miss them.
Nothing wrong with a hug in the morning, you know.
You miss the little kids. Like, you get to see them smile, like, every time you just talk to them, and now they're not there because we're here and they're there. So.
Well, you know, I've always been a student of how time is expanded and compressed depending on how we feel about a given situation. And for me, time in some situations, as we said very early, time and space don't matter because you're communicating in your mind and your heart and your prayers with these kids every day. But did it seem, how many days were you there?
8, I think.
8 days total. As you now look back on it, did it seem like a much longer time?
It seemed longer, like, when we were there, and then, like, towards the end of the week, we're like, oh my God, we're leaving pretty soon. And I didn't think about anything in Plattsburgh while I was gone. It was just like I was there and nothing else. That, like, I figured I would miss things, but I didn't. When I was there, I was just thinking about
on a smaller scale, it's like when I go to Myrtle Beach, I don't want to go home either, you know? A far different situation there.
Except you weren't sleeping on the floor.
No, that's it. No. Yeah, it's like when I go camping in the summertime in my camper with a microwave oven and a color television set and a VCR, and these people don't have any idea how we live, do they? Before you got there,
I don't think so.
I don't know what their view of Americans would be.
I don't know. I think I really don't know how they think like we live. I think they know that we have more material things than they do because like we had buses coming to pick us up to go places and stuff, and we had different clothes every day and stuff. But I don't know how they viewed us.
I bet there aren't very many of you who wouldn't like to go back, right?
Yeah, the first day we came back, I think that was really hard for everybody. I don't know, personal, I felt so empty the first day I was home. I don't know, like the whole time you were there, you were sad, but you also had a deep feeling of joy. And I don't know, when I was here again, I felt really empty. And when my mom called, I was just crying. And I don't know, she couldn't really understand me because she was so far away. But I don't know.
Something to think about. Let's get this microphone down. I didn't mean to leave you out, and I can stretch it. You can actually hold the microphone and give me some of your impressions, because when I was talking with the ladies here, there was an awful lot of nodding down there like, yeah, that's what I felt too. Just take the mic and talk to me.
Well, they're mentioning when we came back. When a lot of the students came back, they had a special service for us, and they prepared food and stuff, and a lot of the students couldn't eat. Like, they weren't hungry, or they were hungry, but they couldn't eat it because they were thinking about the people in Nicaragua. And for, I believe, like a week after, like, nobody wanted to waste, and people weren't buying as much at lunch, and like, they were just finding things to do with their food other than throwing away because they realized that we have so much and the Nicaraguans have so little. When I was down there, I had many of the same experiences as Sister and Elisa and Holly. It was very touching because I helped set up a volleyball net, which was very, very beneficial. Because down there, recreation to them was like the joy. They loved it. And when we set up the volleyball net, we played volleyball every day. We played it in the morning, we played it in the afternoon, we played it at night. They loved it. They'd come and ask for the volleyball, and we'd give it to them, and they'd ask us to join in, and we did. And they had the little kids playing, they had the older kids playing, and everybody just played because it was fun, and that's what they wanted to do. It was something for them to do. I did several things while I was in there. I helped put ceiling tiles in one of the schools, and I helped paint. And we thought that we didn't have enough time to finish, but when it started getting down to the last few days, it seemed like everybody just wanted to get it done. Not because it seemed long and tedious, but everyone just wanted to get it done so the students would have a place to go to school. And I think that when we came back, we had a deeper appreciation for our education because down there was children that would come into the courtyard that weren't going to school there and that they didn't have food. Some of the students that were going to school, the only meal they got was the food that they ate at school, which might be a bowl of rice with maybe some chicken. And to see these other children, coming in and they want to go to school and they can't, and just to have the education, learn to speak English, just to have that meal, just to have nice clothes for the school, it was sad. And to come back, I would complain that we have to wear a tie and we have to be in dress code, and down there everybody had the same uniform, and people were happy. They didn't, well, this one has these clothes and this child has this, and everybody looked the same. Everybody was happy, and while I was down there, I had the chance to sponsor a child for a year of school. This child was 12 years old, and yes, that one.
Okay, let's get the picture up so we can talk about it. Go ahead.
This child was a child of, I believe, 3 children. One was older and wasn't in school, and he had a sister attending the school. The family had not enough money to send both children to school at the same time. They were both going, but something would happen with the family where the mother was no longer there, and so there's a father, a daughter, and a son. And since the daughter was older, they were sending the daughter to school. And the son went to school up until 4th grade, and he was 12 years old. And I felt really bad that, his sister got to go to school and he didn't. I didn't realize they were brother and sister. But you'd see the same kid come to school, like for 4 or 5 days straight with the same clothes on, and his sister would come to school with a clean uniform that they had. And he'd come just to walk her to school and to walk her home and to play with the kids in the courtyard. And to see his sister go off to school, why he sat there, watching her walk away, it was sad. And I didn't realize they were brother and sister, like I said before. And then when I sponsored him, I found out, and he was extremely happy that he got to go to school.
That's a great story. You've got as soon as your voice comes back with Sister Debbie's, you might have a job. I think we've created some missionaries here. What do you think?
Oh, I think so. In fact, Damien himself had made the decision while he was in Nicaragua that he may very well pursue missionary work as a life experience. And 2 of the students have already said to me, since they've returned, that one of them is putting off college for a year with the intention of doing missionary work, and another one hopes to join the Peace Corps. And that's part of why we did this, because I could talk till I'm purple about missionary work and about leveling the playing field in this world, and we're not on a level playing field. And to try to help to change structures and to change society, you can't do that unless you change hearts. And so the goal of this mission was, from my perspective, was to help high school young people change their hearts. And as God changes their hearts, they come back, they talk to 2 or 3 more. Well, I don't know how the heck I'm going to get them on the mission next year, because there's like half the school wants to go next year, and that's good. I mean, I would rather have to say I can't take everyone than not have anyone to go. And once you begin to change hearts, then you can begin to change structures. Because as you change how you live, like Damien said, we don't waste as much. I'm a little more appreciative of the water I use, because we didn't have water for many hours a day. And we were in the compound where there was supposed to be water and electricity. And every night when we sat down to eat, the electricity was shut off by the government for a period of time. And it was almost like a reminder of saying, remember, we can do this to you anytime, that whole power and control thing. And even as bad as we had it in the ice storm last year, there is absolutely no comparison, because even without Hurricane Mitch, this land is devastated by poverty. We are talking about people living in cardboard boxes and on the side of hills. And they don't have the agencies in place that we do to assist. They wouldn't have even had the capacity. Like one student before we left, a younger student said to me, well, why didn't they just move if the mudslides and the hurricane was going to be that bad? And it suddenly struck us as we went down there, there are no radios, there's no light, there's no water. These homes, if they have homes, are existing on sides of roads. They have no vehicles. They're miles and miles from communication. They walk or have mules or some horses for whatever. Most people, the people that we dealt with, and there's really no middle class. It's either very rich or very poor in Nicaragua. And it suddenly was reality for us. They would not have known that they were going to be flooded out by a hurricane. There was no way of knowing. There was no way of being communicated with. So by changing our perspectives, changing who we are, then we can begin to help slowly affect change in our area.
That's a wonderful way to put it, too. I don't want to mix these pictures up, but I do want to mention some more. What other would be significant one do you think? I know you've got to leave very soon.
Well, my kids can talk for me.
Of course.
I don't know. I maybe a couple from the orphanage, and then maybe this one.
All right, let's talk about this
We haven't
one.
talked about the orphanage much. Before we left, one of our major goals of the week, besides helping in the school compound, was making a visit to the orphanage. We learned a lot about Central American communication, which is slow. We call it Gunter time. That's a joke that we have based on someone that assisted us in Nicaragua, and we'd schedule meetings for 8:30, and we'd be having them at 1. No exaggeration. We
No
schedule.
kidding.
No, that is not an exaggeration. One morning, I scheduled a meeting for 8:30, and we sat down at 1:30 to have the meeting. And another morning, the bus was supposed to leave to take my students someplace at 7, and it was like 8:30, and we're still waiting. So that's kind of typical, but we learned to flow with that. However, the picture that you're looking at is in the middle of that picture is the superior of a new order of sisters who have been established to work with the orphanage. The orphanage was very, very painful experience for all of us. 120 children in the orphanage, very few boys, mostly girls, and obviously that's because in a country in Central America or South America, we know that the girls are not as valued as the boys. There's not that level playing field there either. But anyway, the majority of these children in this orphanage were victims of the hurricane. The sisters found them out in the fields, or people would notify the sisters that there's a child here or there. And the children ranged in age from 2 months to 16 years of age. We made a visit to the orphanage finally by midweek, and the children, when we arrived there, were praying. And my kids their arms are loaded with toys and clothing and all this stuff. And the children were so intent on their prayer of gratitude. But when the prayer finished, they came rushing at the kids. And I don't know how they, because I wasn't holding anything except a camera, but they weren't rushing at the kids for the toys and the games and the clothing. They were rushing at to give them hugs, to be touched, to be loved. And I think that was a very valuable lesson for all of us.
Sounds like one of many valuable
one of
lessons for
many.
everybody in the course of time.
Yeah.
That's great. Next.
Well, maybe the last one I could speak to is this experience, and
All
then
right, let's do
I'll
that.
let the students cover the rest of these. They can
Okay.
tell the story.
Go ahead.
What you see here is we were fortunate enough to be in Nicaragua during the beginning of Lent, which is Ash Wednesday, for those of us who are Christians. And we were celebrating school mass. School mass was being celebrated for a dual purpose, one to celebrate Ash Wednesday, and also one to honor Eliza, who was celebrating her birthday. And yeah, it was really special. She's got a really special story to tell you. But anyway, I was asked, along with Sister Stephanie and Brother Raymond, to help distribute ashes to the children. And we're talking 1,500 children standing in straight rows in the hot sun. We never had it less than 90 to 95 degrees and 85, 90% humidity. And they always insisted that we Americans would sit. That was their graciousness to us. And we could not do that, or we would have been insulting them. But they stood. And during the homily, Father talked about if you have 2 cookies, what do you do? And the children all responded, give one away. And of course, everything is in Spanish, and we're getting this interpreted to us. And then it was time to give the ashes after the homily. And I truly was I never expected my own personal reaction. I had been crying all week, and that was all right. And I had been hugging and loving and giving people love and receiving so much love. But these children, were clamoring toward me and hugging me, and just could not wait to receive the ashes, which was such a symbol of their own faith. And the only image I could get is I come from a large family. I have 19 nieces and nephews, and it was like Christmas. It was like when the kids come at you for Christmas gifts, and they were coming at me for ashes. And child after child, hundreds of children, as I signed the ashes on their forehead, 2 things happened. I could not say, remember you are dust, because it just no longer was significant at that moment. I could say, remember how loved you are. And as I was saying that, I saw God in the eyes of the children, and that is the image that sustains me and also transforms me in terms of who I've been as a person and who I hope to become. It was a very powerful experience for me, and I'm losing my voice, so you can pass it on to
Perfectly
somebody
all right.
else.
Before you leave, I want to thank you so much for all you've done, are doing, and will do, because this is an ongoing project.
It is.
You've already given us a clue. The next trip is in the works already.
It is. Our next trip for the schools, Seton Mission of Hope 2, will be next February during our break, and we've begun working on that. We're continuing to accept contributions and donations year-round, and also sponsorship. We have 46 children already in school directly because of the assistance of the North Country, and we hope that many more people will assist us in responding, because the only hope for these children to break out of that cycle of poverty is to have a chance at an education. And the North Country can be very proud, because right now there are 46 kids who would not be receiving anything otherwise.
I think you've lit your little candle.
Yeah, you know what? We've lit our little candles in that corner of the world, but that corner of the world is now part of who we are.
That's wonderful. Sister, thanks so much for having us here. Our program will continue, and we'll talk to you again.
Have fun.
Damien got a little closer to me over here because his voice is squeaky too. What kind of a bug did you pick up?
A lack of sleep, I
I
think.
think that's mostly it. huh?
Yeah. lack of sleep.
What's one thing you wanted to mention? You want to talk about this one, right?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
This is a picture of when we went to meet the cardinal of the country. He's the only cardinal of the whole entire country of Nicaragua. A lot of the students didn't want to go. It was part of the plan to go visit the cardinal because we're a Catholic school, and that was one on our agenda. And the reason why a lot of students didn't want to go was because of mixed communications. We weren't received the supplies on time that we needed to repair the school with, and we got them late. And a lot of the students wanted to finish painting and building the school. They thought that giving the students an education would be a lot more important than visiting with the cardinal. But Sister Debbie told us that it was part of our obligation to go, to speak to the cardinal, why we're in Nicaragua, and what we hope to do while we're in Nicaragua. And while we were there, we expressed, well, the adults expressed their thoughts on what's going on with the relief efforts from Hurricane Mitch. It was told to the cardinal that the government would be helping with a lot of the education, with a lot of the schooling, and rebuilding of the towns and stuff. And we had informed the cardinal that the government hasn't been keeping up their bargain. They haven't been doing anything. And that the Catholic schools in general haven't received any funding, and the teachers have been cut in pay, the little pay that they get, due to the disaster and stuff. And the cardinal had no idea that that the Catholic schools were in so much danger of losing teachers and students due to lack of money and stuff. And so we explained to him that a lot of the country that he hasn't seen yet is still in deep poverty. They were in poverty before, but through the destruction, because of the hurricane, that there's so many that have nothing. I mean, literally nothing, and he did not realize that, and we expressed that to him as a group.
Gee, that's terrific. All right. Any other pictures on this side that have any special meaning for you that you might like to mention? All right, let's put this one up. What's that all about?
This is a picture of one of Oscar Flores' relatives. They're all relatives of his, but one in general. There was one of his aunts or great aunts that was in a wheelchair, and the wheelchair that she had was borrowed. It wasn't her own, and she was in great need of a wheelchair. And what we did was we carried a wheelchair assembled in a box. I think it was 1.5 miles, 2 miles on our backs, up a hill, just to
Of course,
deliver
it had to be
up a hill.
On your back,
Up
up a hill.
Yeah.
You can't say in the snow, though, right?
No, not in the
You
snow.
wouldn't get away with that, Damien.
No, not down there.
All right.
But we carried it on our backs. We took turns carrying it up this hill, and we assembled it for his aunt. Along with his aunt, there was a couple of his relatives, like a distant cousin and an uncle and stuff. They were playing baseball with wadded up cloth and a tree branch, and that's what they did for fun. So what we did, we brought a baseball and a softball
Oh, you did?
and a baseball bat to this family that had no
You
recreation.
can hit a baseball a lot farther than you can hit a wadded up.
Oh yeah, we've seen it firsthand. You can hit it a lot farther. But we gave it to one of the adults, male adults, and he wouldn't let the bat go. It was like a Christmas present. You know, he was so proud of it. Like, he just carried it everywhere. He wouldn't put it down. I mean, he helped assemble the wheelchair. He was still holding the bat, and he kept telling us thank you. And the children were like tossing the softball back and forth. Not very hard though, but they were tossing it back and forth. And they kept asking what it was, because to them, a baseball or a softball is a piece of cloth wadded up very tightly, and they didn't realize what it was. And we had to explain to them that's what you use to hit with the baseball bat, and they were just very happy that we brought it.
Oh, what wonderful stories. Just sit here and relax. I know Damien's got to leave in a few minutes to go visit somebody else, but I want to chat with the ladies over here. I didn't mean to leave you out. He sounded like his voice was fading, and I wanted to be nice to him. What picture would you like to show? It's Holly, right? What picture would you like to show next? All right, that's a beautiful picture to me, and I have no idea what it's all about. So explain to me.
We went one day to visit the family. Their house is like shown in the picture. It's cardboard. Basically, they built, and I think there was 8 people in the family, and the people that sponsored, I guess 3 of the children are going to be sent to school now, but the little kids hadn't eaten, and we went there. We brought them food, but when they gave them the food, they were like, they weren't going to have dinner that night if we hadn't given them that, and it was really sad to see that where they lived. Like, you can't imagine it. Like, you think about it and you see it on television and everything, but it's not the same as being there and being like, well, this is where they really live. I don't know.
You've had a lot of impressions. There were images going by you by the thousands while you were there. It's very hard. Sister mentioned the word process. It's very hard to process things when they happen so fast. But now that you're back home, and you've been back home for how long now as we're taping this? How many days? Just a guess.
I don't.
Somebody knows. How long have you been back? 3 weeks?
About 3 weeks.
About 3
About
weeks
3
you've been back. And you can process things one at a time. Nobody can process all that at the same time. But those impressions, photographs help to bring it out, right? So you can put that photograph and that experience somewhere in your memory banks and then deal with it.
I took about 100 pictures, and then I got them developed, and I was like, I wish I had taken more. Every day I think about the little kids there. Like, every day I see images of them in my mind. I think the main thing that bothered me the most is these kids that don't have any money and don't have anything. They were saying when they gave them like a baseball bat, if we had taken a team of them back here, they would be the best in the league and they would win everything because they're really great. They have such focus on schoolwork and sports because they have not much else to do. And some of them, they might not ever get to be like, if they could be a major league person, they can't do it because they won't get out of there. And they could be like the most talented in the world, but they'll just live in their community for the rest of their life.
But I bet you their lives are just a little bit different by the fact that you folks spent that time period down there. Now, I'm going to get some deeper reflections as we get on with the program, and I don't want to make you think as though you have to change the world sitting around this table with all these profound thoughts, but I want you to express to me how, in your own words, how you think it changed you. Was it, first of all, let me have you explain to me whether it was different from what you anticipated. You anticipated this trip for quite a while. You planned on it. You knew you were going down there. You were told about Nicaragua. You saw the news reports, etc. You got there and did it and came back home. What was the biggest difference in that original sensation you had about what it was going to be like and the way it really turned out?
I had pretty much, knew what to expect. I was aware of what was going on, but it's so different to just like be there and be actually, because you are like, is this really happening? Like, you know what's down there and you're aware of it and you are concerned about it, but then you're there and it's really great to be like there and you're helping the people.
Well, when kids are hugging you, you know, you guys live in a video generation. I was brought up long before that. The only time we saw things move that weren't moving in front of our own faces was if we could ever save a dime to go to the movies. But now you're in a video generation. A lot of what you see and experience in the course of a week, it comes out of a VCR or on a movie screen. And that's one more time removed from reality. But I imagine being there and having the little kids sitting in your arms and seeing, you know, sensing the emotion of the whole thing right, close up, right, and personal. That's what made the difference, I think.
You forget about like everything else. Like if you were in Plattsburgh and you're here and you wouldn't just walk up and hug someone on the street, like if you thought they were dirty or anything, but you forget like the people, you don't know if they're clean or anything, and you just don't even pay attention to that because they embrace you and they really know what it is to be happy. I think they know better than any of us.
Yeah, I think what you've said a lot more than you think you've said this morning. You're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, why can't I tell them the way I really feel? You've said it more eloquently than you have any idea when you told me before that it almost made you mad to come back to this area and see the way people react to things and know what your relationships were with your friends on this level, and then go down there and experience that kind of relationship on a truly basic level, heart to heart, soul to soul. These are things we read about in Longfellow and Tennyson and other great poetry and say, well, heart to heart, soul to soul, blah, blah, blah. But down there you did it. You felt it. You knew it. And I imagine what you're telling me is that things seem, I don't know, a little more shallow when you get back home, you know? Like taking 3 sweaters out and making your parents wash 2 of them and, you know, putting on 4 T-shirts a day. And
Yeah, we really, like, we concentrate so much on material things, and it's so different to be there because they are, like, happy and they have, like, we would think that they have nothing. And then, but really, I think they have more than us because they're so happy.
Oh, see, now you're getting right down to the basics. Will you do me a favor and exchange places right here so I won't have to reach across in front of your face? We're playing musical chairs because I like this German accent. And you told me you weren't fluent in the language, but you are fluent in the language. I want to know about the birthday bit. That's what I want to know about.
I mean, actually, Ash Wednesday, that wasn't my birthday. It was 2 days later, but Sister Debbie and my host mom, they told the nuns there that it was going to be my birthday. So they wanted to, I don't know, celebrate me in Mass, kind of.
I
that.
think that's pretty nice.
Yeah, so I heard about that before, and I was a little bit scared because I didn't know how to react. And then they told me to come up to the kind of stage, and they were singing a song for me, and that was so overwhelming. I mean, 1,500 people sing a birthday song for you.
That's pretty good.
And and they were clapping hands, and I felt so loved. I mean, at home, even my best friends and my family don't show that much. I mean, I know they love me, but they don't show it the same way. So, I don't know, it was really moved. But then it got even better when I came down again. All the kids came up to me and hugged me and said happy birthday, and they kissed me, and it was so many people there, and I don't know, it was just great, and I really didn't expect that at all. And then a little girl came, and she gave me a pack of cookies, and I mean, that was really overwhelming, because they don't have anything to eat, and I knew that even though I know the cookie is really a lot to her, I know that I can't appreciate a cookie like it is for them. So I didn't want to take it, but she didn't want me to not take it. So finally I just took one cookie out of the pack, and so I was close to cry. And then another little girl came, and she gave me her Barbie doll. And
Oh, wow. Did she
brought
really?
that with me.
Oh, okay.
That's Barbie doll. And I don't know, she didn't even know me, and she gave me everything she had. And I mean, I was thinking how many dolls I had, and I never thought about giving them away, and she just gave me so much with that doll. And first I thought I couldn't take it, but then Ilona's mom told me it would be insulting for her to not take it, so I don't know, I took the doll, and I was
Gives you a whole new
very
lesson, a whole new lesson in sharing, doesn't it, huh?
Yeah. And then the day after, I found her in a class, and she gave me a note, and that said in Spanish, but someone translated it for me, that she just thanked Jesus that I came, and that she loves me like a mother. And I don't know, just a girl I have never talked to before is giving so much to me, and I just thought, why can't we be like that? Like, if we gave as much as they give, like, we only give what we have over, and they give what they subsist on, and it's really...
Now, I want our viewers to think a moment about the phrase that you mentioned earlier about not having very good facility with the language, because you are expressing yourself extremely well today and telling us how you feel. And I hope the message does not fall on deaf ears, because I know a lot of young people will be watching this program as well as their parents and grandparents around the North Country. And if we haven't accomplished anything in this session, hopefully we get people to think a little bit about their own personal lives and relationships. Because once again, that word perspective, it lets us realize, and I'm sure you've felt that way when you got back home, that the things you were worried about before may have not been the right things to worry about, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I realized that a hug or just a little gesture can mean so much to someone, and I was thinking, why can't I be like that? Just go to someone and just say hello and smile at them, and I mean, it makes you feel so much better, and it's not the big things that make you happy, it's just that you feel love.
Well, what better way to do it? It's not the big things that make you happy, it's just that you feel love. I want to show a couple more of these photographs. Who can talk about this one right here? Would that be you, Holly?
That was on. Let me hold this.
Sure.
On the
Talk till you get tired.
on the last night we were there, they had a special goodbye, like farewell service for us, and they sang to us and they had dances for us, and this little boy was sitting right next to me, and he sat there, he didn't talk, he was probably, I don't know if he talks very well or if he could try and talk English or anything, but he was just sitting next to me, and he'd sit there and stare sometimes, and I thought he was adorable. So I just took a picture of him, and his mom's sitting right next to him. She's in the background of the picture, and she was there with his...
You're pushing the microphone away. Get it close to your mouth.
with his little brother.
Yeah.
I didn't know the kid, but they love to take their pictures there. They always come up to you, and they'll be like, "Can you take my picture? Can you take my picture? Or can I use your camera?" And so I took a lot of pictures when I was there of the little kids. They were just adorable.
They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but we're attaching at least 1,000 to every one of these pictures, just to let you know that there is a great deal of emotion and feeling attached to all of them. What is this we're looking at right here?
I guess that is when we went to Tipitapa and saw the real devastation, and that used to be a road there, and now it looks like a river. I don't know, and that was really, I don't know, the kids there. When we came, they went to touch us and everything, but we were told not to touch them because they had diseases and everything. And I guess that was a really hard time for every one of us when we went there, because we just felt like so much like tourists, just looking at it and taking pictures, but not want to be with the people. And like, I don't know, it was hard.
Let's talk a little bit about, you've had a number of cultural changes in your life. I want to talk a little bit about your background and how you came here and what life has been like. Let's start with your childhood, about where you were born and how you finally got to this country.
Well, I'm born in Hamburg, Germany. That's in the north. And I don't know, I actually never wanted to come to the United States, and so when my teacher first talked about it, I was like, okay, that's nice, but nothing for me. And then, I don't know why I changed my mind, but I thought maybe you should try it. So my parents wanted me to go to a private school in the East because they thought that is more educated, and I don't know. So, I don't know, I chose Seton, and I don't know, I'm here now, and I'm really happy that I came and that I have the experience, that I went to Nicaragua and everything. And I think just because of this trip to Nicaragua, it was worth that I came. I mean, there are a lot of other things that are great here, but just that I had the experience to go to Nicaragua, I don't want to trade that for anything. That was
Life is a package deal. You get you're a collection of all your experiences, and you've had many, traveling all around the globe, just about. When's the last time you saw your parents?
August 30th last year.
And so you called them when you got back here.
Actually, my mom called me because she was really afraid. I mean, when I told her, I would like to go to Nicaragua, she wasn't thrilled about that. Because, I mean, I guess it was hard for her.
Mothers are the same everywhere. Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, first, it's hard for her to not knowing exactly what I'm doing every day. Then I told her that I'm going to go to Nicaragua, and she thought it was dangerous and the diseases and everything, so she was really concerned about me. And I don't know, so I almost decided not to go, but then I talked to Sister Debbie, and Sister Debbie said, maybe your mom is just saying to you, I actually don't feel very good about letting you go, but if you really want to go, you have to make your own decision. And she said probably she's just saying that because she wants to lead you to a point to make your own decisions. And so actually that was the point when I said, okay, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go. And
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
So I'm really happy that I went.
It's a wonderful experience to talk to you people. Are there any other pictures that you had that you wanted us to take a look at? Just hand them to me one at a time, Holly, and I'll stick them up here, because I know everybody who went took cameras, right?
Yeah.
There were hundreds and hundreds of photographs, and each one has a meaning for somebody. So what's that one, Hal?
That's one of the first days when we got there. I think it was the first day we actually talked with the children, and that little boy that's walking, that's Megala Fave, and she's walking, the little boy was frightened, and she talked him into walking over with her and to play, and there's kids in the background, and they gave him bubbles because they had never used bubbles before, and so they really loved they blew bubbles for days.
They must have freaked out when they saw bubbles. We take those for granted. We started doing those from almost the day we were born. So that was an amazing experience for the kids, huh?
Yeah, it was really neat because they were fascinated by them. They'd play with them for hours and they would blow them at each other. And some of the kids, they would just be shaking it, and all the soap stuff would go all over you, and you would be, because they were just having a ball with it.
Let's talk a little bit about your experience in deciding to go to Nicaragua. Was that a tough decision for you? Did you have trouble convincing anybody, or did you say, okay, I'm going, we're out of here?
I'm in campus ministry, and the first time they mentioned it was before Christmas break, and I immediately took an interest in it, and I was talking to some of my friends at practice that day, and I told my parents when I got home that I wanted to go. They said it would be a good idea, it would be good for me. My dad went on the trip with me.
Oh, he did? That's kind of cool.
My mom was originally going to go, but she found out they needed more men to supervise, so she said that he would go, and he enjoyed the trip. I didn't have any really doubts that I wanted to go, and my parents supported my decision, and they went with me.
Yeah. Well, have you and your dad talked a lot about it since you got back?
Not a real lot. Like, we've talked to my family, and we showed them pictures and told them about it, and it comes up like almost every day, something like, oh, when we were in Nicaragua, something about the trip, because it's like every day you think about the kids, and so they come up in just about everything.
I'm sure there are little tiny memories that keep coming in that you had forgotten about for a few days, right? That just all of a sudden you remember, oh, I remember that kid when you see the picture.
Well, I don't know. It's not. Actually, the pictures don't mean that much to me. I mean, when my host mom came from her first trip from Nicaragua, I thought the pictures say so much. And now I see my pictures and I think they don't say anything. They can't express how we felt down there and how the people are. So sometimes I think that pictures take a little bit from my experience.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a whole new idea now. In other words, nobody can possibly know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for you it helps to see the pictures and make it more visual or whatever. But I think for everybody who went to the trip, the pictures just, you see, oh, I was there, but you think about something different. You don't see the picture as a picture. You have a story or something like that, and you have a feeling, and the pictures, I don't know. I think the pictures are not that much to us.
They don't tell the big story, right? But that's the only story we have to tell is what you tell us and what we see in the pictures today. You're ready with it? All right.
That was just from
give me another
the
one.
Mass.
All right.
They,
Go ahead. Talk about it.
yeah, that was my birthday Mass when they were singing the song and clapping the hands, and when the kids came to me.
Did they all sing happy birthday? Did they actually know the words? How did that work?
First they sang a Spanish song, and I don't know what that was about, and then they sang happy birthday, and I don't know, especially when the part Dear Elisa came, I don't know, it was like really for me, and that was...
Can you imagine, based on the feeling you had at that moment, what it must be like to win a gold medal in the Olympics when you stand on the platform, they play your national anthem, and they put the gold medal around your neck? I bet you it's something like the feeling you had there.
Wow.
You think so?
I don't know. I have never thought about
1,500 feet, people, but it must be a very similar, overpowering emotion saying, whoa, this is for me.
Yeah, that was really... I mean, first I even didn't want to go up there because I felt, I don't know,
Embarrassed.
I don't deserve it,
Oh.
kind of that. And then, I don't know, it was great.
It was a wonderful experience for you. And then where's the next one? Is this the next one? What's this?
Yeah, that was...
What's that?
Yeah, that was when everybody came to me and was hugging me and kissing me, and I don't know, there were like so many people coming to me. That was really, wow.
You get a different meaning about, sometimes we throw the word love around, As if, well, I love you. I really love you. You love our cats. We love our dogs. We love our school. We love our countries. We love a lot of things. But this experience probably gave you've mentioned the word love a lot of times here today. So I think it maybe took on an expanded or a little different meaning to you with this trip, didn't it?
Yeah, sometimes you say I love you, but that was love. It was like a warm feeling inside. It was
Warm, fuzzy feeling, as we say. Yeah.
yeah. So that was just, I don't know. I think everybody was just smiling a lot more down there. Like you could look in everybody's face, and everybody was just okay. Sometimes we were crying, like.
Sometimes those two emotions are very closely tied together,
Yeah.
laughing and crying.
But I just had the feeling, even though we were really dirty down there and everything, it didn't bother anyone. It was something greater, something higher. I don't know.
Higher and greater are good words. And the word profound comes into our mind. We've talked about it because it has a very deep, very deep meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right. You actually are talking a lot louder as we go on here, as you get involved in this. You've been looking at some of your own pictures there. What have you seen?
One of the times when we worked, she talked about the food, the cafeteria. There's a little baby I held, and there was so many little kids there. They talked about one in the clinic that was malnourished because his mom had stopped feeding it. The little children there, you couldn't imagine, like, you feel awful because they don't have, like, food or whatever, and they like, play with you, and they don't know you, but babies are, normally they run to their mom because they're frightened, but their parents are like, here, hold it, and they give it to you, and they're like, here, play with it.
Yeah, well, that's what you talked about, sharing. And you got the doll, and you got the cookie. And when somebody hands you a baby, I would say that's the ultimate sharing. That's sharing at its very deepest level, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but I remember
Wow.
one time I took a little baby, and I was asking the mother if I should get some milk for the baby, and she was sure. So I took the baby and went in our home, and then someone came after me and told me, you have to bring back the baby. She thinks you want to keep the baby now, and
Oh my goodness.
so you see, maybe they gave the baby, but they love it so much, and I don't know, so I felt really bad about that.
That's a very interesting experience. Holy mackerel. All right. This is kind of neat. Go ahead.
That was in the cafeteria. The baby's mother had let me hold it, and they go there to eat. They were there most every day. And one time when I went in there later and I went to pick up the baby, everybody laughed because it had an accident, and it didn't have like a diaper, like a normal diaper on, so it was all wet, but I picked it up and held it anyway. They were embarrassed, I think, a little bit, but I didn't even know.
Didn't even bother you a bit.
No, it was like to hold the little baby. It was you didn't care about the other things, like what was wrong with it or if it was dirty. You just forget about it.
Yeah, and just go on with life. We're going to talk a little bit about what you saw and what you did, and maybe see some more pictures as we continue our conversation with these young women who went to Nicaragua, and talk a bit about how important this mission was and future missions. We're underway again. We just took a deep breath and took some new pictures out and began to talk. Now, I want to find out a little bit more about how old you were when you started learning to speak English, because you speak English as well as any of the rest of us do. Did you take it like in the very early grades?
Yeah, in fifth
Oh.
grade. So I had it 6 years before I came. But it's completely different to learn it in school and to be actually here. And I mean, I don't know. maybe a little bit different, the accent, or I don't know.
You know, you have a wonderful accent. It's just absolutely charming, but you also speak English extremely well, so don't ever be embarrassed. There will be never any difficulty in you communicating with people who speak English. Now, Spanish, that would be a different thing. I imagine it was. Did you pick up a few Spanish words, or have you taken Spanish classes, or?
I never had Spanish classes, so when I was down there, I felt really bad because I just felt kind of comfortable to speak English, and then I was at a place where, again, I had a hard time with the language. I mean, even harder than with English before I came. So I don't know. That was hard for me because, like, some kids, they were talking to you and they like looked at you and were waiting for an answer, and the only thing you could say is, "I don't speak Spanish." So I just learned "No habla español" and something like that. So I mean,
Even I know what that means.
and I don't know, and probably everybody of us learned, what was it, loco and loca, and that means that you're crazy. And they loved chewing gum, so chewing gum was chicle. Yeah, chicle.
Well, that almost makes sense, doesn't it? Thank goodness a lot of the root words are words that we can recognize from way back when. Did you learn other languages besides English and German growing up?
Yeah, French, but I mean, French is my third language, and then I had Latin, but I'm pretty bad.
Well, we probably won't find anybody within 50 feet of where we are who's going to speak fluent Latin, so you don't have to worry about anybody testing you in that.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable in French?
Not anymore. I don't know. Since I'm here, I have only English vocabularies in my head, so French got a little bit lost somewhere.
I just wondered because, of course, we have a lot of French-speaking people around here, and I'm sure the language the Quebec folks speak is a lot different from the French you were taught in school as a child in Hamburg.
Yeah. My host brother, he went also to Nicaragua, and he's from Canada, Quebec. And, he's close to Montreal, and he's watching the Canadian channel sometimes, and I don't understand a word. And I feel really bad. I think, man, I had French for 4 years, and I don't understand a word, so kind of wasted time.
It's not really wasted time. It's just like different dialects and accents and different colloquialisms and a lot of English phrases that are just thrown in there for good measure. And it's a very, very difficult because it's a different part of the world. Let's get at some more pictures. What's the next one you want to show?
The picture there, that was
Okay.
when we arrived, that was the first day. And I don't know, maybe I heard about that the kids there are really poor and that they sometimes were just, I don't know, go and beg you for something. And the little two guys, I had my bag and I was complaining that it was so heavy and I don't know. And this little boy, he just came and took my bag and carried it for me. And I felt so bad because, I mean, here you always try to take something a little kid is carrying because you think it's too small to do that. And he was so short and I felt really like a tourist and that a native was carrying my stuff, and I wanted to take it back, but then he was really fast, and he already arrived at the bus, and I don't know. I felt bad about that, and I think that was the first time that I really, okay, I'm here now, and it's different.
Yeah, here now and it's different. And it's going to be different forever in your own mind based on the lessons you learned. Something that Calvin was going to make me a little note when we took our last break, and it's something that I wanted to discuss before we left anyway. You talked about how things are different, how your relationships are different. But when you get back here, you talk about that unmitigated love. People were giving and taking love with no strings attached, just hugging you, you know. And when you got back, did it change your feelings toward your friends, your other relationships here? Did it change? Did that change the way you react to other people once you got home?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe I try a little bit more to show people that I like them. And I remember the first day we were here, all the people who were in Nicaragua, they were just hugging each other, and I just had the feeling that everybody just needed to be held, and I don't know, probably it was a little bit of a culture shock to be back, and it was not only like cold outside, the temperatures, it was like a little bit cold, the feelings that people showed you. And I mean, they were really interested, and they weren't any different than before we went, but it was just, you had experienced so much, and then you came back and it was a shock, and you felt, at least I felt empty, and I don't know, I felt that I needed to be whole.
You know, I loved you expressed that extremely well. Holly, how about you?
I agree with Lisa. That's basically it. When you get back, you kind of feel like you've lost something when you you went down there and you gained it, and then you kind of lost it. You got so used to having a special part in your, you love every day you smile and every day you hug people that you don't even know, and you kind of lose it when you come back here. I don't think it changed so much relationships. We hug a lot. So, I don't know.
Well, hopefully it gave you, I'm one of those people that loves to hug everybody, and I try to smile all the time, and it's just part of my personality. I'm very positive about things because I've learned how the exchange of love takes place. I've had a lot of tragedy happen in my lifetime, and I know how important those hugs are. When you're at your worst moments, like some of those people were in Nicaragua, where you went, somebody hugs you and says it's all right, or expresses that just by virtue of the hug itself, then that's something you want to be able to share for the rest of your lives. And it's very difficult, I imagine, to come back into a culture where people, like you said, don't run down the street and say, give me a hug, because somebody would be taking you away in one of those loco wagons that you talked about a few minutes ago. But it's something we can do in subtle ways, I think, right? It's something we can do in subtle ways to show people to express our love more openly, to tell people when we really care about something, to express our gratitude when somebody does something nice for you. Sometimes we forget to do that. And so there are a lot of lessons to be learned, I think, right?
Yeah, I think we can learn really a lot from them.
Well, you have. I tell you, you probably went there thinking you were going to be the teachers, but I think you ended up being the students, don't you, Holly?
Yeah, I think I learned how to smile a lot more when I was down there, because I didn't know what to say a lot of times, so I just smiled. And here I don't walk down the street and smile at people.
That's not a bad idea.
They smile at you when they see you, and here you don't just. I never did before. I think I'm starting to now, just walk down the street and smile at everyone you see, but I think I'm learning how to smile a lot more. I don't like to smile, though.
It fits pretty good, though. I have to tell you, it fits pretty good. My father used to say, smile. It'll make everybody wonder what you've been up to. Huh? All right, let's see. Look at a couple more pictures here. You got some picked out. Just let's put them up on a really fancy easel here and get a look at it. Talk about it.
That was another one from Tippy Tapa. It's the Pan American Highway, I think, that got flooded, and it looks kind of like a river going in the background, but it's really, the road is broken. Those little kids asked me to take a picture of them. They were earlier playing in the water, and they told us when we got off the bus, don't even step near the water because it's diseased, and you could catch something just by getting it on you. And they were playing in it because they didn't know any better, and they were living there, and it was a disaster. It was... the flooding had caused so much damage there. It was wow. We see the floods in Plattsburgh from the river and stuff, but I don't think they...
Not even close, right?
I don't think they compare that, because it's the water that floods here isn't nearly as bad as that, but the kids are playing in there, and they don't even know that it's bad for them. So.
We got Lisa's opinion about photographs and how you can't really compare the photograph to the real thing because it's entirely different. But do you feel the same way? Are you reminded by the photographs a little bit more about what you did, or what's your feeling about that?
I think they kind of remind me, I'll be thinking about, if I look through my album, I look back and I'm oh, I remember that day. I miss them so much. And, the people I, spent time with when I was down there, I miss them because I see their picture and I think about them. and I have some hanging in my wall at home now, and I really miss those kids.
You know, there is a theory, and I think I subscribe to the theory that something besides an image, just a flat, two-dimensional image, is captured in every photograph. And that's why sometimes we take out photographs from our wallets or our lockets or keychains of our loved ones who may not be with us, that have died years ago, our grandparents and great-grandparents, and we feel a direct connection. And I don't know, maybe every picture is kind of a little door that gives you at least something to focus on. It's like saying certain prayers allow you to get we hope, a direct line of communication to somebody upstairs. And maybe that's what photographs are. But I mean, I feel when I look at photographs, I wasn't even there. But if I see these photographs in the future, it'll attach me not only to your stories, but to you as individuals. Unfortunately, you will be leaving us. When are you going back home?
June 30th.
Not that she's paying any attention to the days. June 30th, but you'll have stories to tell your friends back home.
Yeah, I guess.
Are any of them exchange students? Did any of your friends back home go to other countries?
They are not really close friends, but one friend of mine is in Brazil, and another one is in the United States too.
We've had quite a few exchange students from Brazil, some very interesting personalities and people I've met in the past. All right, next picture. Give me one and we'll just set it up here and you can talk about it. What is it?
That's the last day. That's our bus that's in the background, I think. Then we're leaving. That little girl, every day she'd run up and hug me, and she learned my name, and I thought it was the greatest thing. I was so flattered by it. Every day she'd run up and be like, "Hi, Holly, hi." And like they mispronounce my name sometimes because it's different from the way their names are. And she always wanted her picture taken. I have several pictures of her, and they hang on my wall. And it just really touched me that she learned my name, and like there's so many people there. There's all these people in her school, and there's all those people that we came with, and she like knew our names and she knew our faces, and she could like pick us out of a crowd.
You know, in our country, when it comes time to elect politicians, we say one vote counts. Your vote counts. Sometimes when you're young and you have your whole life in front of you, it's hard to realize that you, as a young individual, can actually make a difference in something or somebody or some little corner of the world. And we're going to end our discussion here today by talking about that for a minute. Do you think you really made a difference down there?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to say it, but I think we made a difference, yeah. I guess you just have to start somewhere, and when you always tell yourself, well, it doesn't matter if you do something or you don't do something, then you can change, but you just have to start somewhere, and I think we just started, and yeah, I think we made a difference.
You are beautiful people, both of you people, all of you are beautiful people, but when you say you have to start somewhere, you never can make a difference if you don't start somewhere. All right, your opinion.
I think that what we did wasn't like a huge deal. I mean, it obviously got a lot of
It was
attention.
to me, by the way.
It was, but I think that we made a difference. Like if we just touched the people's lives just like a little bit, then we made a difference. I'd like to think that I do something worthwhile, and I think that part of the trip was making life worthwhile, like helping someone out, and you really feel better if you are helping other people more than like just sitting at home on February break and watching television. I wouldn't have traded it in going to Nicaragua.
I'd love to hear you say that. And you know, I believe that we're put here to make a difference in small ways and big ways according to what our talents and capabilities are. I think you people have made a big difference. And I might say that just meeting with you here today has made a big difference in my life. I had a pretty high opinion of people your age beforehand because I've raised a lot of kids. And I think you people are the strength, have a lot of the strength and insight that I didn't have when I was your age. I only wish that I had had this kind of opportunity when I was your age. I don't know if I would have been different now, but I am different now just because I sat here and talked to you folks for a while. I don't know what your plans are for the future. Let's talk about the future. Have you picked a college or university, or what would you like to do to further your education once you get out of high school?
No, I have no idea. I don't know. I just know what I don't want to do. But I don't know. I'd like to work in another country, but I don't know.
There's
Like
so
to
much,
travel,
there's
yeah.
plenty of time. Travel is great. You've already enjoyed a lot of the travel you've had, right?
Yeah.
That's terrific. Probably won't be speaking Spanish fluently the next time I see you. But who knows? Maybe she'll be conversing with her friends in Latin. I don't know. And how about you, Holly? What are you going to do with your life?
I don't know. I have a couple years left in high school, and I want to go back to Nicaragua. And next year they're doing the trip, but I don't know if they're letting the same people. I've already talked to other people about going down in a different program that's going to Nicaragua, because I talked to some other people that have gone, and I might go next year again. Or I'd really like to do that, but I try and concentrate because I tried to convince myself that I have to pay attention now, and I can't always think about how much I want to be there. I have to do something now, like, so that I can be better educated, and I could, like, if I can't rely on my parents to pay for me to go down there. I have to get a job and stuff, and then eventually I can go down there and I can do a lot more if I have an education and stuff.
Well, education is power. It gives us a chance to make the changes in the world that we'd like to make on something even larger than that little tiny way you people have talked about, and education is part of that. We haven't shown this picture yet. Does anybody here know what this is all about? Yeah. I think this is a wonderful image for us to leave with in this portion of our program.
That was kindergarten, and it was the first day in school for them. So a lot of kids were crying and tried to escape, and there were little holes in the fences, and they tried to escape through the holes. And this little girl, she was crying for 2 hours non-stop, and I just hold her, and I felt really bad because I couldn't comfort her, and I couldn't say something, and so I just had her on my lap, and yeah.
It was an important time for you then, wasn't it, huh? What I think it's just absolutely marvelous that we've chosen this picture by sheer chance to end this portion of our program today. I want to thank you both, not only for being here with me. It's been a kick to put this on tape to let other people in the North Country know how really neat you people are. But I think it's been a good experience for you and for everybody in this community to be part of it by helping you with your quest. I want to wish you both the very best of good fortune in your future.
Thank you.
I won't say good luck, because you're going to make your own good luck, and your futures are going to be just terrific. And when you go back home, don't forget us either, okay?
I won't.
You promise?
Yeah.
See you guys later. Thank you so much. And to our other guests earlier today, hopefully, on the end of this program, you will be able to see some footage that our good friend Jack LeDuc has been kind enough to put on a format which we can use on Hometown Cable. And maybe if I can catch him in his busy duties over the next day or two before this program airs, we'll be able to get to some of his personal comments, because I know, even as a hardened reporter, he was deeply moved by the visions, the sights that he saw in Nicaragua as well. Thank you for watching today in our program called Our Little Corner. Well, now we changed venues, but we didn't change stories. We're in the Mountain Lake 57 studios, but in a little cubbyhole with my good friend Jack LeDuc. How are you, Jackson?
Very good, Gordon. Thank you.
This is where you make a living.
Well, not with Channel 57. I'm with Channel 3.
WCAX, Channel 3.
And we rent space here from Channel 57.
Introduced you earlier in the program, saying that you've been a lifelong friend, and you took this opportunity to go to Nicaragua, and some of the footage is playing in the background. You've been a lot of places. You've covered a lot of news stories. How does this one compare when you were right in the middle of it?
This is an unbelievable story, and as you see right here, the people at Seton Catholic were unloading their boxes here that they brought down to Nicaragua. They brought 3 tons of food, clothing, and medicine down to the people in Nicaragua who needed it badly. They have been suffering from Hurricane Mitch, but also there was a tremendous earthquake in 1972, and they haven't recovered from that yet. The big problem is the government doesn't have any real infrastructure to funnel money to disasters. So these people have been trying to recover from a tremendous earthquake that knocked out roads, buildings, water systems in 1972. Then along comes the war with the Sandinistas, almost 10 years of turmoil and uprooting people and costing the government money that should have been going to the welfare of people. Then along comes Hurricane Mitch, killing probably upwards of 10,000 people, making thousands of them homeless, and no money from the government to help out. There was a lot of material gathered here in the United States, plane loads of it brought down to Nicaragua. Much of it is still sitting in warehouses. The government has no structure for getting this material out to the people. So that's why the Seton Catholic movement and program worked out so well, because they not only brought 3 tons of badly needed material down there, but they distributed it to the people directly, put it in their hands. And that's what made it so good.
When you listen to those young students talking about the reaction there was from the young kids when they were bringing in their stuff, the kids were in prayer and they finished their prayer and they just wanted to run up and give them a hug.
Yeah, not only the students, but there were 30 students that went down and 20 adults, and everybody had the same reaction, that here were people who appreciated anything you gave them. Not only gave them, but just being there. They appreciated you being there, showing that you cared. And also the material they got, they appreciated it, but they needed it. Some of them put the clothing on right away. And Dr. Malseptic went down with 5 nurses who just worked unbelievably hard. They saw people who'd probably never seen a doctor before in their lives, and they dispensed medicine, medical advice, care, and I saw the nurses and doctor working, and they showed real compassion for these people and understanding. They really did a lot of good, and the people there, the students, especially the students, they're at a very impressionistic age in their life, and seeing how other people live outside of the United States, I'm sure has changed their lives. I've heard some of the young people say, I'm going to feel guilty every time I eat a full meal. They walked in and they repaired a school that was flooded out by Hurricane Mitch. Here they are painting. Everybody painting their school. Otherwise, the school would have still had the same old mud-caked area that it had before. The school just doesn't have any money to do anything at all. They don't have money to buy books. Many of the students have to go without books, paper, anything like that. The students don't have it. And education is the future of all of Central America. They're way behind on education. They're in a highly technological age where they need to know computers, they need to know business practices and science. And Seton Catholic, I think, did the right thing. They concentrated in one area of help, and it was at this particular school, so that the kids can stay in school, so that they can get an education and compete in the upcoming new millennium.
Really, these relationships are going to continue. We talked to Sister Debbie today. Her voice was almost gone when she got back. She's recovering a little bit now. It was tiring for everybody. Sure. I know how long all of you worked, but she was deeply and profoundly and personally moved by the whole experience, and is very emotional just talking about it in retrospect. And the same is true of every one of those young people. We haven't interviewed many of the other adults who went, but for the kids, I mean, they got their hand up. Some of them want to become missionaries
Some of them.
based on that trip alone.
There were two of them down there that were thinking of going in the Peace Corps and didn't know if they wanted to or not. And this pretty much made their mind up that they want to go in the Peace Corps and continue work like this. Now, I was down in Nicaragua 28 years ago. Things were bad then. I found them a little bit worse now.
No kidding.
The government is perhaps a little bit better. They no longer have a military government. It is a civilian government, but the structure for getting money, unemployment, I don't know. It's in the double figures. The sister city of Burlington, Puerto Cabezas, on the other side of the country I went to, 80% unemployment. And the countryside is so poor that the people keep coming into the city of Managua, the capital city of Managua. There's no work there. So the streets are crowded with people begging, trying to sell anything they can. The government has no money to do anything. The situation just keeps getting worse.
And from what I understand in talking with those students and Sister Debbie this morning on the first part of our program, for many of those people, time means nothing. Now, time for you and me, the clock chased us through everything we do. When I was in the radio business and you're in this business and formerly in the newspaper business, you always got a deadline. There's always something frantic to be done. How do you deal with it in a country where 8 o'clock in the morning, and Sister Debbie would say the bus would show up by 10, or a 7:30 meeting would take place at 1:30 in the afternoon? That must be a little fun.
Well, it is frustrating for the North American, but you want to remember these people are living in a day-to-day existence where we look forward to tomorrow because it's going to be something better for us. Their tomorrows are only repeats of a sad yesterday.
Wow.
So there's not all that much to rush to.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, there's not that much to rush to. You're only rushing to a little more sadness, maybe a little more starvation, hunger, whatever.
How did you know what to focus on? You took a lot of footage. You said you took
Quite a few hours of footage, and
did occasional stories and sent them back. You didn't know you were going to do that in the very beginning, so you scrounged.
We fed five pieces back, and everything went exceptionally well. What stories to focus on was a very difficult thing because there are so many stories to be told down there, and nobody is telling stories about Central America. The United States press. The only reporting the U.S. press does on Central America is disaster coverage.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's an absolute fact.
Sure.
Our viewers think about it.
How much copy have you read, Associated Press copy, about hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and revolutions? It's disaster coverage, and they never cover politics of Central America, everyday life, and the problems in Central America. And this is something I tried to focus on.
You've always felt strongly about that, having been there before and seen it firsthand, and knowing what the turmoil is.
I lived and worked in El Salvador for 3 years and went through 2 wars down there. I feel that the United States lacks an awful lot of knowledge about Central America. We take them for granted. The U.S. government, as far as I'm concerned, even takes Central America for granted. There is no real Latin American policy in existence today. We sort of work off and on. Bill Clinton just went down there. He went down there asking for $900 million, I believe, for relief, but no program to enact it. He's going to have a hard time getting it through Congress, and I don't know how hard he's going to work to get it, if it's just something he said while he was there, or if it's really going to happen when he gets back. Only time will tell. He's a lame duck. So Central America may be lost in the shadows again.
What was your wife's opinion of the whole thing?
Well, she and I both had the same opinion. That things were probably worse than when we were down in Central America for 3 years, 28 years ago. And she looked at it, we both looked at it through probably experienced eyes, but a little sadder eyes than we had before, because both of us looked at each other and said, is there any hope here at all? And that's why we were so encouraged with the help that these 50 people from Plattsburgh and the North Country brought down with them, and brought a little bit of encouragement to these folks. But it's going to live on after, because they've invested in education. And that is the key to it. The folks from Seton Catholic focused on that educational area where these kids can continue and go on to school next year. They sponsored a lot of children, and anybody can do that for $100. They sponsor a child for a whole year. And I'll get this off of here. For $100, they sponsor a child for a whole year. That means they get their uniform. The school makes their own uniform right there for them. And uniforms are good because the children no one's dressed any better than anybody else. It makes them all feel equal. That's good. They give them a meal there at the school. That's good. And they
Maybe
give them
the only
education.
one they get.
Well, for some of them, it'll be the best meal they get, probably. And it means they stay in school. It means they get education. And they can go into the workforce with an education. Computers, or there wasn't... The only computers were down there was some that they had brought down and given them. So that's going to be introduced. They're going to introduce them to the computer age. And that's where the jobs will come from.
Were there any other areas of the United States represented there in that specific area where you were?
Yeah, we bumped into a lot of people, and that's the other thing I was encouraged about. A lot of church groups, a lot of civic groups. The Rotary is doing a lot down there. The Rotary met us.
Yeah.
The Rotary met us down there and helped us
Always
distribute.
have, though.
That's been a strong part of their program. The Rotary met us down there, and they worked to help distribute a lot of the things. They set things up for us. A lot of credit goes to the Rotary. And we bumped into other groups from Kansas City, from California. As I said, the Burlington Sister City program, they're in Nicaragua right now, helping out. We went to the school there. They had brought in computers to the school there and brought one of the people back to the University of Vermont to train that person to work on computers and repair them and set them up. Then he went back to Puerto Cabezas in Nicaragua, where he's doing that now, at a school run by nuns from Minnesota. Also, the Puerto Cabezas Fire Department is so poor that they only have money for their salaries. No equipment, no vehicles. They have a 20-year-old Russian-made fire truck that there's no longer parts for. If it breaks down, they can't get parts for it. They have to literally machine make the parts. It takes days. If there's a fire, the fire truck sits there. The Burlington Fire Department sent clothing down for the firemen. Jackets, hats, pants, boots. Otherwise, these guys would have to fight a fire in regular street clothes, no protection whatsoever. So, yes, the answer to that, there's a lot of groups. The mayor of Puerto Cabezas was a Sandinista, which means that party is no longer in power. He doesn't get any money at all. His main source of income is to go to people. He told me, I had a long interview with him. He said, I literally have to go tin cupping with a tin cup in my hand to all the embassies, all the countries, all the agencies, all the cities and towns in the United States to try to get some money to keep my village alive.
It's amazing. So the overall experience was a pretty good one for you then, I take it.
Latin America has interested me since I was 19 years old. I went to the University of Mexico and then graduated from the University of Madrid. And it's always been a fascinating area for me. It's always been an area completely misunderstood by the United States or not understood at all by the United States. And it's a fascinating area. It has a burgeoning population that we're going to have to look at because it's going to present extreme problems down the road, both environmentally, economically, and politically.
It's amazing. Well, Jack, once again, you're a true friend. Thank you so much for this extra insight from your professional point of view. But thanks also for the footage you're going to let us show. You're a true professional and a true friend, and I think that was a good experience for everybody. We talked to those kids today. They were deeply moved, profoundly moved, and their lives in many ways were changed forever based
No question
on that
about it.
experience.
Yep, no question about it.
Thanks again, Jack.
Hasta luego.
And same right back to you. You know the language way better than I do. Jack LeDuc, WCAX Television Channel 3. Thanks to Jack and Sister Debbie and all the people who not only went to Nicaragua, but who supported this enterprise. And yep, they're going to do it again next year. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.
Trust in you.
Good, Jerry. You're on a candid camera.
Just maybe.
You're on candid camera.
Hey, does anybody know where we're going? Is this the bus to what's the Where are we going again? You got anything heavy? Is this heavy?
This one's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's real heavy.
Oh, heavy.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Bien, gracias. Aquí.
There's like 20 areas. You want to say anything?
Está bueno, mucho.
I can never get it over. Bring it down, she said.
They were there for the ceremony.
What if I should just take this stuff? This stuff, we're just going to need this stuff anyway.
Mixing my stuff, sorting the gauze in these 2 boxes.
You're in regular peach stuff.
You too? You want me to take your blood pressure too?
We are in the village of Chiquilistapa.
Se te do una receta, señora, la receta, se te do una receta, ¿usted puede comprar la medicina o no?
Por eso que no compré
Sí, más caro. She wants some vitamins. I think we should give her vitamins.
Oh, I'll give her one box. Okay.
¿Desde cuánto tiempo que tiene? When I press, cuando espino.
Sí, cuando él aprieta que se siente dolor.
Siempre me marquen baja la cabeza. got some lymph nodes here. Usted tiene los lymph nodes.
No puede darnos al mediodía para que así vayan caminando por la vayan de luz para que comen algo de la cena. Pero su panza que anden
Communities together.
Hey, Ethan, get that boy something else. That isn't gonna...
Es mejor para el
¿Dónde está la cámara?
puntito para mí a ver si le queda un rollo para la niña y una cosita para el bebé y yo. Creo que there's a little speaker over here that can feed that food. Mira, y para small. Okay, but smaller. We'll get you something.